The mansion was filled with silence, except for the baby's cries. Hours had passed, and still no one came. His tiny body shook with exhaustion, his lips dry, the bottle beside him spoiled and useless. Naomi Carter, the young black housemaid, stood frozen in the doorway. Her chest tightened as she saw him, red-faced, desperate, starving. She remembered too well, her own child, gone just weeks ago, her body still carrying the weight of milk with nowhere to go. She rushed forward, trembling. "Oh, baby, you can't go on like this." Naomi lifted him into her arms. Instinct took over. She sat down, held him close, and with a breaking heart, offered him the only thing she had left to give. The cries stopped instantly. The child latched on with desperate hunger, and for the first time that night, peace fell over the room. Tears streamed down Naomi's face. "You're safe now," she whispered. "You're safe." The door creaked open. Daniel Hayes, wealthy, exhausted, buried in meetings, froze in the doorway. There she was, Naomi, sitting in the nursery chair, his infant son against her chest, silent for the first time in days. For a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe. The sight was so natural, so peaceful, that his mind refused to accept it. "What the hell is going on here?" His voice cracked through the quiet. Naomi nearly jumped, covering herself quickly while holding the baby tight. Her eyes widened, terrified. "Please, Mr. Hayes, I can explain. He was starving, the bottle was spoiled, he was in danger." Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to be angry, but when his eyes fell on his son, the fury collapsed into confusion. The baby was calm, breathing steady, safe. For weeks, he had never seen him like this. Naomi whispered, voice trembling, "I lost my own child, but I couldn't let yours suffer the same." Daniel staggered closer, torn between outrage and something he couldn't yet name. Gratitude or guilt. By the next morning, whispers were already spreading through the neighborhood. She was feeding the baby like she was his mother. She lost her own child, now she's obsessed with Naomi. She's taking advantage of Mr. Hayes while he's vulnerable. The words traveled faster than truth ever could. From the nanny to the housekeeper, from one neighbor to another, until the whole community was buzzing. Inside the mansion, Daniel felt the pressure closing in. The phone rang endlessly. Friends, in-laws, business partners. "Daniel, you can't allow this. A maid nursing your child? It's scandalous. What would your late wife think? This woman is dangerous." Naomi stayed quiet, holding the baby who now slept peacefully in her arms. For the first time, he smiled at her. For the first time, he looked truly alive. But every smile only made the whispers louder. Daniel stared at the floor, torn in two. He saw his son thriving in Naomi's care, yet the voices outside screamed shame, danger, ruin. That night, his decision fell like a blade. "Naomi, you need to leave." Her hands shook as she placed the baby back in the crib. Tears burned her eyes. "I saved him," she whispered. "And this is how you thank me?" Daniel couldn't answer. The cries of his son started again the moment she walked out the door. The rain had just started when Naomi stepped out of the mansion. She carried nothing but a small bag, her clothes clinging to her skin as the storm soaked her within minutes. She walked with her head down, each step heavier than the last, until the lights of the mansion disappeared behind her. That night, she slept on a bus stop bench, shivering, listening to the city move around her like she was invisible. By the second night, hunger gnawed at her stomach. Men passing by muttered things under their breath. She pulled her knees to her chest, trying not to cry. On the third night, she joined a group of homeless souls beneath a bridge, strangers bound only by loss. Naomi was gone. Forgotten. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the baby was never the same. Without Naomi's arms, he refused every bottle. His tiny fists clawed at the air, his cries cutting through the night like knives. Daniel paced the nursery, desperate. Please, son, please. But no matter what he tried, the rocking, the lullabies, the new nannies, nothing worked. One nanny left in tears after only a day. Another called it trauma. The pediatrician shook his head. He's rejecting everyone. He's looking for someone specific. Daniel's heart sank. He knew exactly who. At 3 a.m., standing in the nursery with his son screaming in his arms, Daniel whispered the name he hadn't dared to say aloud. Naomi. The baby kept crying. But Daniel understood. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. Daniel hadn't slept in days. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes hollow, his patience gone. The mansion, once polished and pristine, now felt like a prison echoing with endless cries. His son's voice was breaking, hoarse from screaming. Every bottle Daniel offered was pushed away. Every lullaby, ignored. It was close to midnight when he heard something strange in the back garden. A whisper. A man's voice. He followed the sound, his chest tight, and when he turned the corner, he froze. There was Adriana, the expensive nanny, standing near the gate, handing a small box of baby medicine to a man in a hoodie. The man counted bills quickly and shoved them into her hand. Daniel's heart sank. What the hell is this? Adriana spun around, her face pale. Mr. Hayes. I was just selling my son's medicine? Daniel's voice cracked like thunder. The man took off running, but Daniel didn't move. His glare stayed locked on her. How long? Adriana's hands shook. I needed money. My mother, she's sick. Daniel cut her off, stepping closer. How long have you been stealing from my child? Tears welled in her eyes, but then she blurted out words she could never take back. None of this would have happened if that maid hadn't interfered. Daniel stiffened. His blood turned cold. What did you just say? Adriana looked trapped. She stumbled over her words. I only meant... Naomi. She was making me look bad. Everyone could see the baby calmed with her. Daniel's voice was low, dangerous. Finish it. Adriana broke. I lied. I said she was obsessed with the baby, that she wanted to replace your wife. But it was a lie. I was jealous, okay? Jealous because she was better with him than I ever was. Silence fell heavy. The only sound was the distant cry of the baby from upstairs. Daniel's hands trembled, not from weakness, but from rage and guilt. You let my son suffer. You let him starve. And you destroyed the only person who cared enough to save him. Adriana reached out, desperate. Please, Mr. Hayes, don't fire me. Get out. His voice was ice. Out of my house. Now. She tried to speak, but the look in his eyes silenced her. Adriana grabbed her purse and fled into the night, leaving Daniel standing alone in the garden. He turned back toward the mansion, the cries of his baby pulling him like a chain around his heart. His legs felt weak, his chest heavy. He walked upstairs, into the nursery, and looked down at his son, red-faced, gasping for breath between sobs. Daniel whispered, almost to himself. She was the only one who could save you, and I threw her away. For the first time, he let himself cry. Not just for his son. Not just for his late wife. But for Naomi, the woman he had judged, rejected, and abandoned to the streets. And with each tear, one thought grew louder in his mind. I have to find her. The city never looked so big. Skyscrapers glowed against the night sky, taxis splashed through puddles, and people hurried past each other as if no one else existed. Somewhere out there, among millions, was Naomi. Daniel drove aimlessly at first, eyes scanning every corner, every bus stop, every shadow under a bridge. He rolled down the window, heart pounding. Naomi. His voice was swallowed by traffic and rain. By the third night, his body was breaking down. He hadn't shaved. He hadn't eaten. He wandered into shelters, churches, even alleyways. Each time he showed Naomi's picture, pulled from a grainy frame on the mansion's security camera, the answer was the same. Shaking heads. Blank stares. No one knew her. Meanwhile, his son grew weaker. The pediatrician's words echoed in his mind. He's rejecting care. He's looking for someone specific. In the hospital crib, the baby's cheeks hollowed, his cries turned to whimpers. Machines beeped softly, but the sound of his breathing was shallow, fragile. Nurses whispered in the hallway. Daniel overheard one of them. Babies can die from broken bonds. Die. The word tore through him. Every time he left the hospital, Daniel's guilt gnawed deeper. He should have protected Naomi. Instead, he cast her into the streets because of lies. And now his son was paying the price. On the sixth day, desperate and sleepless, Daniel went to a soup kitchen in the downtown district. Volunteers served hot meals to a line of tired, broken faces. He showed the photo again. Have you seen her? Please, she's young, mid-20s, black, dark hair. Her name is Naomi Carter. One of the older volunteers frowned. I've seen a girl like that. She looked sick. Came here 2 nights ago. She left coughing, headed toward the east side. Daniel's heart raced. East side where? Toward the bridge, I think. Near the old viaduct. That night, Daniel drove straight to the viaduct. The underpass was littered with cardboard beds and smoky fires in tin cans. Groups of people huddled beneath the concrete, their faces wary, suspicious of a man in a suit stepping into their world. He raised his hands, almost pleading. Please. I'm looking for someone. Her name is Naomi. She's sick. She saved my son's life. A silence followed. Then a man with a beard, maybe 60, stepped forward. His eyes were tired but kind. You're the father? Yes. Daniel's voice cracked. The man nodded toward a corner where a small figure lay curled on a thin blanket, coughing. She's been burning with fever for days. We tried to help, but she needs more than we can give. Daniel's chest clenched. He walked slowly, each step heavier than the last, until he saw her. Naomi. Her skin was pale, lips dry, hair tangled. She looked nothing like the strong woman who once held his child in peace. She opened her eyes faintly when she felt his shadow fall over her. Her voice was a whisper, hoarse from sickness. Daniel! His throat tightened. He knelt beside her, hands trembling. I'm here. Naomi, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I believed lies and now. His voice broke. Now my son is dying without you. Her eyes filled with tears, but she turned her face away. Why should I believe you? You threw me out like I was nothing. Do you know what it's like out here? She coughed violently, her whole body shaking. Daniel caught her hand, desperate. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but he does. The baby. He needs you. Please, Naomi, come with me. For a long moment, she said nothing. The sound of cars passing above filled the silence. Finally, with a trembling breath, she whispered, "I won't come back for you, Daniel. Only for him." Daniel's eyes flooded. He nodded quickly. "For him. That's all I ask." He lifted her gently into his arms. She was lighter than he remembered, frighteningly fragile. As he carried her to the car, the old man under the bridge called out, "Don't you hurt her again, rich man, or you'll answer to all of us." Daniel nodded, holding Naomi tighter. "Never again." The drive to the hospital was silent except for Naomi's ragged breathing. Daniel gripped the wheel with one hand, her hand with the other, and when they arrived, he whispered to her, almost a prayer, "Please, save him. Save us both." The fluorescent lights of the hospital flickered overhead as Daniel rushed through the doors, Naomi weak in his arms. Doctors and nurses surrounded them in an instant, voices sharp and urgent. "She's burning up. Possible pneumonia. 4-line, antibiotics, fluids, now." Daniel stood back, his heart pounding, watching as they wheeled Naomi away on a stretcher. For a moment, fear crushed him. What if he had found her too late? What if he lost her before his son ever saw her again? 3 endless days passed. Naomi fought through fever and weakness, her body slowly regaining strength. Daniel divided his time between her room and the nursery down the hall, where his son lay pale and fragile in a crib, refusing to eat, refusing to live. On the morning of the 4th day, Dr. Alvarez looked at Daniel with cautious eyes. "She's stable enough now. But only a short visit. 15 minutes. Daniel felt his chest tighten with hope and fear. He pushed Naomi's wheelchair slowly down the corridor. Her face was thin, her hair tied back hastily, but her eyes, tired as they were, lit up the moment she saw the nursery door. Inside, the baby stirred. His breaths were shallow, his body frail. Machines beeped softly in the background. For weeks, he had rejected every hand, every bottle, every touch. But then, he heard her voice. "Hey, my little one," Naomi whispered, her tone gentle, trembling with love. The baby's eyes fluttered open. For a second he looked lost, as if he couldn't believe it. And then, recognition. His tiny arms reached toward her, his lips quivering with a sound Daniel hadn't heard in so long, a small, broken coo. Naomi broke down in tears. "That's it, baby. I'm here. I never left you." Daniel lifted the infant carefully and placed him in her arms. The moment his body touched hers, his crying stopped. His head nestled into her chest, his fists unclenched. The monitors steadied. Naomi kissed his forehead, rocking gently. "Shoo, it's okay. You're safe now." Dr. Alvarez and the nurses watched, stunned. "It's like a switch," one whispered. Another wiped her eyes. "Babies know. They know love when they feel it." Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, his vision blurred with tears. For weeks he had tried everything. Money, experts, new nannies, but it had always been her. Always Naomi. The baby opened his mouth, latched onto the bottle Naomi held, and drank. Slowly at first, then greedily, like he was drinking life itself. Naomi laughed through her tears. "That's my boy. That's it. Drink, little one." When he finished, he looked up at her with the faintest, sweetest smile. His very first since she left. The room fell silent, except for Naomi's soft singing. A lullaby. The same one she used to hum in the mansion late at night when no one else cared. Daniel pressed his hand to his face. Overcome. His knees almost gave way under the weight of it all. Relief, guilt, awe. Dr. Alvarez placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, Mr. Hayes," Medicine isn't enough. Sometimes the cure is simply the bond we dare to break. Naomi rocked the baby gently, humming, tears rolling down her cheeks. Daniel stepped closer, his voice breaking. You saved him. Twice. Naomi didn't look up. She only held the baby tighter, whispering, I didn't come back for you, Daniel. I came back for him. Daniel nodded, his own tears falling freely. I know. And that's enough. In that moment, with the boy smiling faintly against Naomi's chest, the whole world seemed to pause. The pain, the lies, the judgment, all of it faded. What remained was something simple, undeniable, unshakable. Love. 1 week later, the mansion's iron gates opened again. For the first time since the scandal, Naomi stepped through them, not as a servant, but as the woman who had saved the heir of the Hayes family twice. Her steps were slow, careful, the weight of judgment pressing from every corner. Curtains shifted behind tall windows. Phones buzzed with fresh gossip, and gathered at the end of the drive, just beyond the gates, stood a cluster of neighbors, the same women whose whispers had nearly destroyed her. Look at her, one hissed. She's back? After everything. Daniel must have lost his mind. Naomi kept her eyes forward, the baby nestled against her chest. Daniel walked beside her, not a step behind, his face hard with resolve. When they reached the front door, the voices grew louder. Mr. Hayes, are you serious? That woman nursed your child like some obsession. She'll ruin your family's name. Daniel stopped. He turned to face them, his voice strong, carrying across the courtyard. You say she ruined my name? No. She saved it. She saved my son when all of you only cared about appearances. The women faltered, their smug expressions twisting into shock. Daniel pointed toward them, his eyes blazing. While you gossiped, my baby nearly died. While you whispered lies, she gave him what no amount of money could buy: life. Love. A bond you'll never understand. The crowd murmured, some ashamed, others outraged. But Daniel's voice cut through again, colder this time. The opinions of this neighborhood almost killed my son. Never again will I let your voices matter more than his life. Naomi stood quietly, rocking the baby, her eyes fixed on the child who now slept peacefully in her arms. She didn't need to say a word. The truth was there, in his steady breathing, in his calm face. For the first time, the whispers stopped. Daniel opened the mansion door, holding it wide. Naomi, he said softly, welcome home. She hesitated. Her heart still carried the wounds of rejection. But when she looked down at the baby, who curled against her like he belonged nowhere else, she stepped inside. And as the door closed behind them, the neighbors outside stared in silence, forced to face a truth more powerful than their lies. The mansion was quieter now, but not the empty, suffocating silence of before. It was the quiet rhythm of a new routine, soft lullabies at night, tiny cries that no longer went unanswered, the hum of a home finally alive again. Daniel Hayes had been a man who measured life in contracts and closing deals. His late wife had always been the heart of the home, and without her, he had buried himself in work, leaving his son's cries to echo through the walls. But Naomi's return, and the near loss of his child, had broken something in him. And in that breaking, something new was born. Each morning, he carried his son down to the kitchen, the place Naomi once scrubbed floors alone. Now, she sat at the table, bottle in hand, guiding Daniel as he fed the baby himself. At first he was clumsy, the bottle tilted wrong, formula spilling, the baby fussing. Naomi chuckled softly, correcting him with gentle hands. Not like that. Angle it more. There, see. He's taking it now. Daniel smiled faintly, pride blooming in his chest at the simple act of feeding his child. At bath time, he rolled up his sleeves, kneeling by the tub. Naomi handed him a soft towel, and together they bathed the boy, laughing when the baby splashed water across Daniel's expensive shirt. He didn't care. For the first time in his life, stains didn't matter. At night, when Naomi hummed the lullaby that soothed the baby to sleep, Daniel stood quietly in the doorway, listening, memorizing every note. Some nights, he tried to hum along, off-key, awkward, but Naomi never laughed. She only smiled, as if seeing a man finally learn what mattered most. And slowly, Daniel changed. He left his phone in his office when he came home. He canceled meetings to take his son for a walk in the park. He spoke less about deals and more about first smiles, first laughs, the weight of his son's hand gripping his finger. One evening, as Naomi laid the baby down, Daniel whispered to her, almost ashamed of how raw his voice sounded. "I didn't know. I didn't know what it meant to be a father until I watched you love him." Naomi looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head gently. "You always had it in you. You just needed to stop listening to the world and start listening to him." Daniel turned his gaze to the crib, where his son slept peacefully, and for the first time in years, he felt something he thought he had lost forever: hope. It was a Sunday morning, the kind when the neighborhood gathered in polished dresses and pressed suits, parading to church before returning to their manicured lawns. The Hayes mansion, once silent and guarded, now had its front doors wide open. Daniel stood on the steps, his infant son in his arms, dressed in a soft white blanket. Naomi was beside him, steady and calm, though her eyes betrayed the fear of a woman who had lived through too many whispers. She had been called a maid, a liar, an intruder. And now, every pair of eyes in the neighborhood was fixed on her once again. Phones lifted. Murmurs spread. "She's still here. He's parading her now." Daniel raised his voice, clear and unwavering. "For weeks, this child cried while I buried myself in work and pride. He nearly died under my roof because I listened to everyone but him. And when Naomi, the woman standing here, saved his life, I let your gossip blind me. I cast her out, and my son suffered for it." The crowd shifted, some ashamed, some defiant. But Daniel pressed on, his voice sharp as steel. "You called her a servant. You called her obsessed. You called her less. But the truth is simple. Naomi is the reason my son is alive today. She is not our maid. She is his family. And from this day forward, she will never be treated as anything less." Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, her hand trembling against the baby's blanket. One neighbor, bolder than the rest, scoffed. "You can't just erase what she is, Daniel. Blood is blood." Daniel stepped forward, his son in his arms, his voice low but thunderous. "Blood may be blood, but love is life. And she gave my child both when none of you would lift a finger." Silence fell. Even the harshest whisperer lowered her eyes. Naomi looked down at the baby, who stirred softly, then opened his eyes and smiled. Small, pure, innocent. She kissed his forehead, whispering, "That's all the proof we need." Daniel placed a hand on Naomi's shoulder, his own eyes wet. "I lost my wife, and I thought my family ended there. But I see now, I was wrong. My family didn't end. It changed. And Naomi, you are part of it." The crowd had nothing left to say. Their judgment, their gossip, their superiority, shattered in the face of truth. Daniel turned, leading Naomi back inside the mansion, the baby nestled safely between them. The heavy doors closed, shutting out the world of whispers. Inside, the house no longer felt like a tomb. Laughter echoed softly, A lullaby hummed, the warmth of a family reborn filling every corner. For the first time in a long time, the Hayes mansion was no longer just a house. It was a home.